So this video is basically about the books that I've read in September so far and the books that I'm going to read next month in October while being in Seoul, because we're staying in South Korea almost the whole month for 4 weeks in total. I still need to finish the book that is called Returning to Reims by Didier Eribon. So I'm going to read it on the plane because it's going to be like a 14 hours flight or something like that. So yeah, let's just quickly cover the books that I've read successfully this month. Everything from the TBR list, so it was kind of like a good month, good reading month for me. Let's begin with this one, Crying in Mart by Zauner. This is her memoir describing her experience of being half American, half Korean, but also experience of losing her mother. It reminded me a little bit of Joan Didion's book, The Year of Magical Thinking, and probably because she explores the subject of grief from her perspective. So yeah, I have noted a couple of things that I found particularly relatable, so especially what it means to be half like Korean and half white, and I think that was kind of close to me. So I enjoyed this book, and again, I'm very biased towards it because I think it is more relatable to me and people like me, but not like all people on the planet. So I don't think it's, it's like a general human experience that she describes in this book, but I think it's really interesting, especially if we're talking about like interracial people who, might experience some self-doubts about self-identity, and I know what they mean because I experienced that too. So yeah, this one is probably one of my favorites in general, like, again, because it's just too relatable, but if you find yourself not liking it, I completely understand because, not everybody's cup of tea, but certainly mine. The next one is the book that was kindly recommended me by one of the viewers of this channel, and it's called The Beauty Myth by Naomi. This is a fantastic book, but unfortunately I had a abridged copy and I learned about it only at the end of the introduction to this book. So I quickly found a digital copy, like a complete unabridged copy, and I had it on my Scribe account, and I also bought an audiobook and I combined the two, so when I was not able, for example, to read a physical or like a digital one, I was just listening to the audio book version, and that was absolutely stunning. It's a great book, and I actually don't understand why they made this abridged copy, because yes, there are some statistics, for example, that she's talking in the full version about like the Americas, 80s and 90s, when she actually was writing this book, and I understand maybe that information is kind of like old and not updated, but I think it's not a problem. I think, again, those statistics that she based her arguments on are very important, again, because they are conveying you as a reader, but they also preserve the state in which women found themselves in that period of time that she's talking about. So I don't understand the reasoning behind like creating the this short copy, maybe just for those who are lazy to read the full one, but I would argue that it's worth to read the complete version. Yes, it is bigger, but you can't just stop reading it. It's very informative, and it's not in a boring way informative. Again, maybe as for me, as for a woman, the experience that she describes in this book is very much relatable and applies to me and my country where I'm from. But I think it's also quite important to give this book to those who are not women, because I think if they know how the system works, maybe they will not encourage and continue the system to exist. For example, they will not encourage to invest all the money that women have into the beauty industry. So that would be, I think, a very reasonable thing. I think I have to reflect on everything that is in this book, especially in my relationship with the beauty industry and in general, like beauty. To be completely honest, I do believe deeply in my mind and my soul that beauty is a very subjective thing, And I do think that beauty lies in your behavior, in your self-representation, and I think that is like way more important than just the size of your lips or your breasts, or I don't know, the color of your shadows on the eyelids. I don't know, like it's just not that important. I do acknowledge that some things that I do in my, let's say, beauty routine is partially motivated by the beauty myth that is settled in our world, but at the same time I don't blame anybody who's doing anything about their appearance, and I do that to myself. I like, for example, manicure, I don't know, or I really enjoy a nice haircut, a fresh haircut. Like those little things, they just make you a little bit new, and I'm not sure if it's because we do it for others or we really genuinely do it for ourselves, and that's the thing that still kind of puzzles me. And I think everybody should think about it in their own terms and in their own time. So yeah, anyways, I would recommend this book. I think it's just very important. It's just an important book, that's it, full stop. The next one that I just finished today is called In Order to Leave, a North Korean Girl's Journey to Freedom by Yeonmi Park. I think this book does not need introduction, again because I mentioned it in my TBR, go check that out, but also because she's a quite famous person, activist, political activist, and educator, I would say, because she spreads her knowledge about the regime of North Korean leaders. And oh boy, this book is, I don't know, I have no words to describe that. I knew when I approached this book that it's gonna be like a heartache for me to read the story, but I didn't know that it was that bad. Like the life that she and problems that she encountered, it was that horrible that at the end I just couldn't stop myself from crying. I let it go. So the story is almost like biblical, where she overcomes all the problems and challenges in her life. And what strikes me, I think, the most is that in the beginning of her life, in her early years, when she was a kid and a young teenager, she couldn't even realize that these are the problems that people usually don't encounter in real life. Of course, at the end, she also mentions that a lot of people struggle, not only in North Korea, but everywhere in the world. Everywhere people are poor and have no access to, clear water and food. And we have to, of course, remember that. I do believe that everybody should read this book. I think it's not just a masterpiece, I think it's just very important work. It's just very important story that we should all know. And I think one of the most important points of this book is that towards the end, actually, she explains that she escaped the North Korea already, and she also lived in China for some time, and then she finally reaches the South Korea, and then she becomes this very famous girl who escaped North Korea. And she travels everywhere, she encounters different people, she basically becomes political activist, let's say. And towards the end of this book, she writes about another book by another Korean woman. I couldn't actually place this book anywhere. Maybe it's not translated into English, I'm not sure about it. But I would love to actually read an excerpt from this book, because I think this is the main message that I've learned. The feeling had been growing in me for some time now. I had read a powerful book called Don't Beat Someone, Even with Flowers, written by a famous Korean actress and humanitarian named Kim Hye-ja, who became an ambassador for the World Vision International charity after she was taken on a tour of Ethiopia's famine camps in the 1990s. Her moving account of the misery in Africa, India, and other places opened my eyes. It taught me the meaning of compassion. And I think this is what this book does for me, the same, absolutely the same. I feel compassion. I now understand what it is to be a North Korean defector, and I appreciate and I respect these people. I think what they're doing, whether because of their own inner motivations or because they understand what the regime does, I think everybody in the world should somehow help them. And I don't know when these stupid age of authoritative states will end. I hope very, very soon. But till then, we should survive together with them, and we should, know what's going on in that part of the world and in other corners where the dictatorship is the norm. So yeah, this book indeed reminded me of what compassion is. But unfortunately, the next one didn't teach me about compassion at all and reminded me how uncompassionate I can be. So this is the infamous Cleopatra and Frankenstein by Coco Mellors. Infamous because everybody's talking about it, everybody's talking about how great that is, and no, I say no. So I read this book because of the book club. It was selected by our book club members. It's not online if you are curious about it, it's offline. And yeah, so yes, we read it, and actually I was the only one who finished the whole book. Like the rest of the girls, they were still in the process. I think they were missing, a couple of chapters, but they were going to finish it. However, at that point, like, we already decided that we don't enjoy this book so much, and all of us have different versions why we don't like this book. So one of our members of our little book club, she mentioned that she didn't enjoy the representation of the main character, and I agree. Like, I really don't like this path. I think it's just, already dead, and we shouldn't take that. That like Anna Karenina and Madame Bovary path, like this troubled women with hysteria or whatever, and they're like not psychologically stable, and there are troubles because of that. I mean, yes, of course it is true, and of course these troubles are because of the systematic patriarchy and blah blah blah. We get it, but can you please just tell us other stories? Can you show us how you can get out of it? What this book didn't do for me personally is the white and beauty privilege that was bleeding out of this book. It's on every page, and I couldn't stand it. I couldn't believe that the troubles and problems that they had were presented to me as some kind of a deep psychological drama. I couldn't care less, again. Couldn't care less. So yeah, this book, just for information if you don't know, is not just about Cleo and Frank, the main characters of this book, but also about the group of people who are, let's say, who are friends and relatives, but still a part of their relationships. And I think this thing is done greatly in this book. I think this is actually a very great perspective, and I think we should consider any human relationship from all the sides, all the parties involved, let's say, because yes, when we talked about marriage, it's not just about two people, it's about their relatives, for example, their families, their first families, I don't know, their found families. So it's just about all the stuff. I had a lot of questions what she did with those characters, and I think the majority of these questions are towards Zoe. So she is a sister of Frank, our main character, and whilst Frank is white guy, I think maybe with some Italian roots, Zoe is half American, half African American. And I think I truly find her storyline is actually 1,000 times more interesting than the story of these two people. Or for example, the character Quentin, who is super interesting, and I would love to explore his story as well, yet his storyline ends very abruptly, and you actually never know what happens to him. And I don't understand why she did that unfairly to this character, because they were wonderful, and for some reason the best friend Cleo, who is the best friend of Quentin, is just mentioning them at the end, we don't talk anymore. That's it. No, you can't do that. You gave me so many information about this person, and then you're saying that they don't talk to each other anymore? I don't know. I think the idea to describe all of these wonderful characters in one book was a huge endeavor, and I think it sounds like, you know, a series of books or like a great TV show, I can imagine. I don't know, maybe it's just bad timing for this book, because I think I read it in afterwards that she wrote this book for 7 years. And yes, sure, you can spend a lot of time writing one book. You can spend 20 years to write one book. It's fine. If you count them, let's say 7 years ago, so this book was published in 2022. So 2022 minus 7 is what? It's like 2015. I can't imagine that Gossip Girl was on the rise. I think like Sex and the City was still a theme. And I can imagine that the subject of like women in New York, but not that successful as those that are depicted in this TV shows. But struggling women would be probably interesting. But I think when it came up in 2022, I think this is where you can't justify the story with the troubles, with the drug addiction of the privileged people, you know? Like, no. Already not my thing. But I would love to learn what you think about this book, because I know that this is quite popular. I'm sure that a lot of people heard about it. I think it's like one of the best books, or like one of the most popular books on TikTok. Have you ever heard of it? And if yes, and if you read it, please let me know your opinion. Maybe you can convince me in you know, in your opinion, if you enjoyed that. Now to a couple of books that I'm going to take with me to my trip, and I'm planning to read on the plane and probably at the airports. So first of all, as I already mentioned, Returning to Reims. It's the book that I actually already started. I just wanted to check. I covered like 20 pages. It was fantastic. I thought that yes, that is a great book for a plane where, you know, you can sit for 8 hours straight and just read a nice beautiful book. So this one comes with me. The next one is the book for our next book club, and because I'm going to be away all October, we're going to meet only in November. So we agreed on that already a long time ago. And for our next book, we chose This Violent Delights by Micah Nemerever. I hope I pronounced the name correctly, Nemerever. Yeah, that's a beautiful one. So beware that there are actually 2 books published in the same year that are called This Violent Delights. And the another one, I don't remember the author, it's kind of like a Romeo and Juliet retelling. And this one is a story of 2 boys who are meeting in their, I don't know, teenage age, in high school or something like that. I'm not sure about it, but again, it was recommended by one of our members and we voted for that. I didn't vote for this book, but I'm obliged to read it with the rest of us. I don't know actually what to expect from this book, and it's actually pretty hefty. But yeah, I hope I'll do that. I hope I'll manage that. Another book that I'm taking with me is The History of Korea by Hwang. Hwang is the professor of Korean history, and he wrote this wonderful English edition of concise Korean history. I actually started reading it already like, I don't know, last year or something like that, and then I dropped it. I couldn't finish it, and I decided that this is probably the only right time when I can do that, when I can actually like finish it. I've stopped somewhere in like late Middle Ages, like 1500s, 1600s. Until that moment, it was actually quite, let's say, boring. I'm not a big fan of ancient history, Middle Age history, so that's like not my thing, unfortunately. I do expect more, you know, interesting stuff towards the 20th century, and like the history, for example, of Japanese colonization, and then like the division of 2 Koreas. So that would be, I think, very interesting to read. And yes, I think I can also like pick this book with me when I will go to, I don't know, a historical museum or maybe a palace, just, you know, to maybe read some of the history while being in those sites. So yeah, these are 3 books only that I'm taking with me. I'm also be carrying my Korean language book, because I'm actually gonna be having like this online classes while being in South Korea, and I hope my old fellow students are gonna envy me, because I will be, you know, sitting in Seoul actually and like learning language Yeah, I'm really excited about it. And if you watch this video, it means that I'm probably somewhere on my way to South Korea. So in the next video, I think I'm going to post from Seoul, and I also will try to find some bookstores. I know it's kind of stupid to buy books in a language that you can't read, but I do believe that maybe I'll pick a couple of, children books. Maybe not for me, but maybe for my future children. But I would love actually to try maybe some, very basic literature. And also for future, because it's really difficult to find books in Korean language here in Germany. And then, and I hope I'll take them also as a souvenir. So I will be showing you maybe a couple of bookstores in my future videos, so you can expect that. And to see that and not miss that, please subscribe to this channel. So yeah, thank you very much for watching this video. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you in Seoul. Bye!